Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan Little. I think we're live. Today, we're going to have an Ask Me Anything session because, well, it's Friday and we might as well. Also, they are doing a bit of work in my apartment today. Hang on. Doing a bit of work in my apartment today, so there's a chance it may get loud. There's a chance I may have to cancel, and if I have to cancel, well, I'd rather be in the middle of a short question than a big question. Happy Friday to everyone. That means tomorrow is Saturday. It's kind of like an off day for some of us. It's probably a work day for some of you. Whatever it is, though, make sure you have fun and enjoy yourself, because that's all we can do. So, type your questions in. I'm happy to answer. I was sent in a few questions, though. You all asked me to send in... I asked you all to send in a bunch of questions for a little coffee, and you all did. Some of them did not take quite as long as others to answer, so here we have it. First, how do you treat dealers? You should treat dealers with the utmost respect, as if they are regular humans, right? Treat people as you would like to be treated. Realize that the dealers are just simply doing their job. They're not doing anything crazy. If the dealer is bad at their job, understand that some people are going to have a tough time. They are going to have a rough go at it, and that is okay. Don't think you need to punish the dealer or be mean to the dealer. Be a nice, good human is what it amounts to. There are times where the dealers need help. For example, I was just in the Bahamas, and they had dealers who were dealing for the first time. They're trying to build out their dealers because they don't normally play poker there, and they're trying to learn to play poker, or deal poker. So, I helped them a little bit, right? However, if your dealer is actually a reasonable dealer, not even necessarily a good dealer, but a reasonable dealer, you don't need to be helping them. You don't need to be grabbing the chips and making change and all that. That is the dealer's job. Let the dealer do their job. If they are a little bit slower than you would like, that is okay. Understand you have to deal with that, and that is part of playing poker. Don't think that you need to run the game or anything like that. That's not true. It's the dealer's job to run the game. Quite often, if you do things like gather the antes and then throw them in the pot, that's going to confuse the dealer, if anything. Also, sometimes you're going to do it wrong, and then guess who's responsible? Well, you're going to think it's not you because you were just helping. But no, it's you. If you grab the chips and you put them in, it's your fault if that ante is short. You don't want to take any unnecessary risk like that for no real reason. So, don't help the dealer do their job. They can do their job perfectly fine. All right, Kevin says, under the gun raised. And that's it. He's apparently typing the hand in piecemeal. It's going to make it difficult to go through it. All right, let's see. Players around you on numerous occasions have not hid their whole cards well. You feel bad for them. Listen, whenever someone does not hide their whole cards well, let them know that they don't hide their whole cards well, and tell them, hey, I can see your cards. And they'll say, oh, okay. Then they'll try to fix it. And if you see them again, tell them one more time, and if they don't fix it then, in my mind, you're kind of free to look. That said, I think they're like ethical rules built into where you're not supposed to look, but I mean, let's get real. If you look to your opponent and their cards are sitting up like this, what are you going to do, right? You can't really help yourself. So let the people know that they're doing something wrong, but that's it. All right. Looking feels bad, but it's their fault for not protecting their hand. Yeah, it is their fault for not protecting their hand. It's absolutely your fault to protect your hand, your cards, your chips, etc., etc., etc. Like when you go on a tournament break, it is your responsibility to take a photo of your chip stack. Because if you come back and it's not all there, well, it's probably just going to be gone. So, you might as well protect yourself, right? All right. Anyway, here we are. Someone raises it to 14 cents. Next person makes it 45 cents. Knowing this player, knowing this game. Okay, so Kevin, a game does not define players. But okay, anyway. You think he has only the nuts. You jammed. Should you have just called 45 cents? I don't know what cards you have, Kevin. All right. Is there any value in low-stakes players becoming balanced? Like doing Equilab stuff. Equilab stuff does not have to do with being balanced. Or figuring out if you, in this spot you should check sometimes and bet sometimes. I think it's definitely valuable. That said, very often in small stakes games you're playing against the same. Very different player pools. So whenever you're playing against different players on a regular basis, there's less value in being balanced because you're never going to see that guy again, right? So you should very often just do the maximally exploitative play, whatever that means. And that is, you have to understand, game theory optimal is maximally exploiting your opponent. That is what game theory is. So if your opponent messes up, you should exploit them hard. I think a lot of people get confused. I think game theory is trying to be perfectly balanced and unexploitable. But that's not necessarily true. That's what you're supposed to do if your opponent is also playing better than you, or if they're playing game theory optimal, but your opponents are not, right? They're messing up. So your job as a game theory player is to maximally exploit them. Ross, good morning. You thought you were just being neurotic, taking a photo of your chips every time. You probably were, but sometimes it'll pay off. All right. Can I expand on what having an edge is? Well, if I make one play and you make a different play, and the play I make in that exact same scenario, like say we have the same situation, let's say the situation Kevin's saying, he raises aces, someone 3-bets, should we jam for $4? Well, if you call in that spot and I jam in that spot, we are making different plays, right? And if my play makes more money, I have an edge over you. If your play makes more money, you have an edge over me, even though like in that scenario, you're not even playing against each other, right? If you look at someone's strategy, very often someone's strategy will have more profit than someone else's strategy, right? If a winning player wins money and a losing player loses money, I have an edge on that player. Now, alternatively, you can say sometimes styles line up, interestingly. This happens very often if people are not playing so well. Like, let's say someone's a maniac and someone's a calling station. The calling station is going to have a huge edge over the maniac because the maniac's just playing right into the calling station's strategy, right? If a maniac's playing against the nit, who just folds way too often, well, now the maniac's going to have a big edge over the nit. So very often you want to figure out what your opponents are doing wrong and see if you can take advantage of that. No baby yet. I have one baby who's 2 years old, but no other baby. All right. Who have I learned from it the most in poker? I've studied from lots and lots and lots of people. Anytime I learn a new game, I study it hard. I find someone who's good at it. I pay them lots of money to coach me, and I get good quickly. That's it's very important. You want to make sure you're not wasting your time, because if you can get in there and start making money from something faster than you would otherwise, you should definitely do that. So I've paid lots of money to coaches, probably, I don't know, $30K at this point, maybe more. I say a lot of money. That's not even a lot of money, right? People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get through medical school or law school or whatnot. So maybe it's actually really, really cheap. All right. Recommended buy-in for micro stakes. Want to be aggressive but not extreme. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll. But who have I studied from the most? I mean, I don't know. That's really a tough question because I've studied from all sorts of players. Recently, I'm on a Ape Styles and Draft Ganger kick. I think they have fantastic content. It's only available for the Pokar backing company, so you all are out of luck. But I'm learning a lot from them. So that's who I'm studying a lot from now. Who are the toughest live players I've faced? I don't know. Again, all the people who play super high rollers are all good and tough. We discussed this a bit in the past, how very often your short perception will let you know if someone is good or bad. Like, for example, everyone generally agrees that Steven Chidwick is probably the best. Okay. Somehow, though, every time I played with him, I've just had top pair and he's bluffed off his stack to me. So what does that mean, right? It means, in reality, I'm probably just running hot against him. But at the same time, I respect him and view him as the best, right? So it's very interesting to understand that just because someone gives you trouble does not necessarily mean they are good. For example, Michael Mizrachi has just won every pot against me. I mean, there's been many times where he's gotten in bad, he's beat me, and I've lost. So does that mean he's tough? I don't think so. It means I'm just not running well against him. But I mean, really, all the super high roller players are all very, very good, very strong, and difficult to play against. How do you deal against people who raise a lot? Is it profitable to jam many big blinds when they raise on the button almost every time? That depends on how often they're going to fold, Kevin. That's a simple math problem. I actually have a blog post coming out on jonathanlittlepoker.com/blog over the next few weeks discussing the 3-bet all-in, and the same thing applies to 4-bet all-in. Any interest in playing Poker Master, Super High Roller Bowl, etc.? Not really. I mean, sure, it'd be good for publicity, from a publicity point of view, but it's not really good from a monetary point of view because you're going to go there, you're going to play for a week, and you're going to roughly break even. And I don't want to go and play and roughly break even with just tons of variance. That's not what I'm doing in life right now. That said, it may actually be worth it. Like if I was to go there and let's say I win, or even have just a good showing, maybe that gets me 20% more business. Maybe that becomes worth it. I don't know. Maybe I should talk to my marketing team about that, see what they think. Maybe I just need to get in there and start firing. Do I watch poker for entertainment? No. What are my thoughts on Poker Go? I think it's amazing. You think it'll be around for a while? I do. I watch poker almost entirely to study and to learn. I don't really sit back and have a beer and relax. Anyway, with your pocket aces hand, Kevin, if you raise, someone 3-bet and you jammed, you have to first ask, it's really a math problem. You're just thinking they have good hands, therefore they're going to call every time. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, maybe for all we know, the guy's folding ace-king or pocket queens because he knows when people jam, people only have aces, right? So you have to ask, how often will your opponents fold? Turn this into a math problem, not a, what should I do problem. What game is worth it to you right now? Worth it. You have to understand, worth it is a function of return on investment. For example, if there's a $1,000 tournament, but I know I can go there and I'm going to win every time because everyone's awful, like they're legitimately awful, obviously it's never going to happen. But say it's a $100 tournament, and I know everyone's going to blind out because they have no clue how to play. And if I win, I get $10,000. Well, if I get $10,000 for free to show up, obviously I'm going to go play, right? But in general, when I travel, I want to make 20,000-ish in a week on average, or more. That's sort of the bottom line for what I'm going to. And fortunately, we can be picky. There are lots and lots of good tournament series, and that's good. D. Nelson says, what's the most valuable information that brought my game to the next level? Understanding you have to get in there, you have to put in a lot of volume, and then you evaluate. I remember a long time ago, I was trying to break into cash games. This is when, very close, like right before Black Friday. And I was talking to Tom Dwan about this, and I was kind of complaining about how I was having a tough time at 10-20. And he essentially said, well, how many hands have you played? I said, I played 10,000. He says, oh, that's a joke. Go play 1,000,000 and then come back. So I did. I played 1,000,000 hands, and then I'd won a bunch of money. So go figure. So basically, don't be a baby. Get in there and play. And don't care about your results. Also, if your question gets skipped on the screen, it means it's gone. I can't scroll back up. Should players strive to develop their own unique strategies and keep those 100% private? No. Quite often, if you work in solitude, you're not going to be nearly as advanced as people who don't work in solitude. I mean, look at all the super high roller players. They all have very good cliques of good players who talk poker and improve together. What do you think of Marley the Poker Vlogger? I think it's another good, fun way to get people into poker. Poker vloggers are great as long as they are doing it in a positive light. I mean, to be fair, there's probably plenty of room for negativity too, but I generally think that the poker community needs positive people who have a good time and make the game enjoyable for the viewers and for the players. And to be fair, I've never played with her or anything like that, so I have very limited experience. I've only seen like 2 vlogs because, again, I don't really watch a whole lot of poker content for entertainment, and vlogs very often are not necessarily strictly educational. Some people's are. Like I know Brad Owens has a really good vlog. He has educational content in there, and I think it's great. So anyway, I turned this question into more of what do I think about vloggers in general. I think it's a great thing. Marley, I don't know a ton about her, so I couldn't tell you. All right, let's see. How do you determine if a staking deal is fair for both parties? In general, you want the backer to get half of the edge of the player, in general. So if you're selling at a markup, let's say you're going to play a $10,000 buy-in tournament, okay? And we think we have 20% ROI, okay? That means that the backer should get half of that, 10%. So how does the backer get half of that? Roughly, if the backee sells at 1.1, backer gets 10%, the 0.1. The staker gets 10%. So there you go. Gregory said, I like Brad Owen, he only plays aces. I saw him running the same bluff the other day with ace-9. It was fun. How's my dad doing? He's still around, still playing, yes. So anyway, that's how you go about making a fair deal for the for individual stakes. Now, next, how about a long-term deal? That's more difficult. It depends on the skill level of the player, right? You have to understand that most people who get staked should not be getting staked. Someone came to me the other day asking for a 20% free roll in a $200 tournament. They wanted me to give them a 25% free roll. I think that's what it was. Then I said, why in the world would I pay you 1.33 given you have no results and you're desperate for money? That's just ridiculous, right? What do you think about learning heads up against Poker Snow? I think that's great. Welcome PJB, first time. You think pros know you're a poker coach and therefore you play tighter? All pros know what I do. And I don't think they think I play tighter. Being a coach does not mean you play tight. When's my book of blogs coming out? I don't have a book of blogs coming out. Maybe you mean a little coffees? I haven't even started with that. That's like a 5-year project. What should you prepare for the World Series of Poker first tournament? Oh, Johnny, that's a big question. Get good. Go to pokercoaching.com. Sign up, study, learn, and proceed forward. If any of you have a list of good vloggers, write their names in the chat, please. I maybe need to be working with some of them. Only good ones, though. Happy, positive ones, not negative troll ones. We did a promotion with Brad Owen a while back where we gave away a lot of free trials of poker coaching. The winner, I think, got a bunch of stuff, physical books, etc., etc. And it went well, so we're happy to work with all the bloggers. Kamal says, John Fallola is anything but a tight poker player. Yeah, that's right. PJB says, Johnny should start with a smaller tournament first. Yeah, play smaller tournaments. Don't just think, I'm never going to play a tournament. I'm going to hop in there and I'm going to play World Poker Tour events. That's not going to work out so well for you. All right, let's see what else we have. Good morning, everybody. That's right. But anyway, who are the toughest players I've faced? I mentioned Dominic Niche has given me trouble recently, but that's just because he's been directly on my left every single time I've played. Right? I mean, if someone's on your left every time you play, and they're good, and they're aggressive, I mean, you're going to have a tough go at it, right? It's always nice when they're on your right, though. It's like, oh, yes, payback time. Okay, we have a few more questions. Online to live difficulty. What's the difference in skill level? In general, I think today the gap is getting even bigger. Like $50 live online tournaments are probably comparable to $500 live tournaments, maybe even bigger. 10 cent, 25 cent online is probably like 2.5, maybe even bigger, like 5.10. Depends on the games exactly, but in my experience at least, online games are playing about 10 times higher. Well, $50 tournaments are like $500 live tournaments, however you want to say that. Is everything okay with my family? They are all great, as far as I know. What's some tips we've gained from Tools of the Titans? I haven't read the whole thing yet. I need to read it. I'm lazy when it comes to reading. I've not read all these books. Tools of the Titan, right there. I've not read it yet. That's why it's up there on that top shelf to remind me, hey, read this book. I hope I have a lot of free time when I have this new baby. I think I'm probably going to end up being on the night shift, which means I'm going to have a lot of time awake at night, making sure a baby is alive. And with any luck, I'll be able to read a lot and write a lot. But, I may actually have no time. We'll be coming to Jacksonville in 2019. I don't know. I'm having 2 babies, so probably not. Just put all your blogs in small books, make an audio from it, and then we're good to go. Yeah, DeMonte, I have considered that. I actually I've written about 1,500 articles at this point. 1,500. So I have to find the good ones first. And to be fair, I could just take all of them and throw them in there, but I want to do better than that. I know Freakonomics did this. They have lots of blogs on there, and that was great. I read that whole thing. It's a good idea, and I need to do it. What's my favorite type of exercise? Bodyweight exercises. I like doing push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, handstand, back bends. I love doing all that stuff. Because you can do it when you're traveling. There's a book called Convict Conditioning. It's made by, presumably, someone who was in prison to teach prisoners how to get in shape in their cell. Poker players are kind of like prisoners when they go to hotel rooms. So it works out perfectly. You think casinos should let you take big denomination chips off the table when leaving the room? No, that's insane. No. All right, what stats should we look for when we go to catch a bluff? So very often, I think Louis Philippe sent this one in. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Louis Philippe sent in a million of these, so thank you, Louis Philippe, for that. What am I looking for when I'm trying to catch a bluff? Very often, if you don't have a lot of stats on people, you should look at their overall stats, right? Say someone's playing 14/12. That's all you have. So if that's all you know. Quite often, I would not think that player's going to be running a lot of bluffs. If you have a guy who's playing, 42-37 pre-flop raise, VPIP pre-flop raise, well, then, yeah, I think that's a situation where your opponents will be doing a lot of bluffing. So you need to look at just overall stats. You also want to look for how often people are being aggressive on the flop, turn, and river, right? How often are they betting? As they're betting more often, very often they just will be bluffing more. So you want to look for overall stats that are correlated to aggression. And if people are generally passive, let's say they're doing a lot of checking, or let's say they're doing a lot of folding when they get raised, whatever. Maybe not necessarily a fold when they get raised, but if they are playing on the passive side, that very often will lead to them not running quite as many bluffs. All right, let's see. Currently reading Pursuit of Poker Success by Lance Bradley. Is that one up here? It's somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's a good book. Lance Bradley essentially interviewed a bunch of poker players and then had them... he asked them lots of questions that were very, very well suited to them. It was a very good book. The chapter's not too long. Kind of like Tools of the Titans, really, where it's just 1 or 2 pages by each person. And it's very good, valuable advice, so check that out. You can find that at dnbpoker.com. Is it ever a good idea to play a satellite to cash it in? What is my opinion? Yeah, sure. I think that's by far a better strategy, assuming you can get the full value. You don't want to play a satellite where you win a $1,000 ticket, but you can only sell it for $800, like happens in some places. But, what's wrong with my hair? But in general, yeah, that's fine. It's fine to play a satellite. I mean, you're just playing it as cash, right? You have to understand you're playing that structure, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, whenever a high-stakes pro, plays a satellite, they essentially are playing it for cash, right? Like, I'll play $2,500 tournaments to satellite into a 25K, but I'm playing the 25K either way, so it's like I am playing for cash, right? How do you construct your calling range versus an unknown, fairly strong balanced player? Minimum defense frequency? Yes. Also, we discussed this thoroughly at pokercoaching.com. You should not have this question, Gregory. Go to pokercoaching.com, go through all the past homework questions, and this will be very thoroughly answered for you. Greg said you won a 9K in a tournament. Good. Thanks to studying at pokercoaching.com. Would it be crazy to spend $3,000 of that to go on a 2-week tournament series? I don't know, probably a little, but I mean, listen, you have to ask, are you trying to become a pro or are you trying to enjoy your experience, right? If you're playing a lot of tournaments with that 3K and it's like a bunch of $300 tournaments, it's probably fine, right? I mean, it's a little aggressive, but fine. Favorite mindset books, bloggers, teachers. Dr. Trisha Cardner. I've learned a lot from her. I've learned a lot from Elliot Rowe, and I've learned a lot from Jared Tendler. Woo, we get to get out the books. We have this, and we have these. Don't fall over books. Here's Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. This has short chapters by, where are they? Elliot Rowe, Trisha Cardner, and where's Jared Tendler? Oh, here he is, way up here. Jared Tendler. And then I have written 2 books on poker psychology. Positive Poker and Peak Poker Performance. Both are very good. I wrote them with Dr. Trisha Cardner. You can find them at jonathanlittlepoker.com/books. So check that out. How much would I recommend poker as a career to someone with no dependents or intention of starting a family? It's probably fine then. I mean, it's definitely a good thing if that's actually the case for you. Can a player run good enough to combat variance and a lack of bankroll? Probably not. Lack of bankroll is the main problem there. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll and all that will be explained. You bluff less all in against a stack that covers you. Depends. Probably not, though. John says, goal is $1 million. I guess that means $1 million in the bank. You have to understand that if that's your goal, you're probably never going to get there because you're going to be trying too hard to get there. Given just the brief thoughts you just said, I would venture to say you're probably going to be looking to gamble very, very hard, and that's not good. You're not going to get there if you're going to be gambling very, very hard. Any tricks? Oh, wait. Gregory says... Greg, I don't know what you're saying. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/blog. There's all sorts of stuff there. Which of my 2 mental books is better to start with? Positive Poker. These almost run together like two books. But I would say Positive Poker is the best one to start with. And then go to Peak Poker Performance. Are you still studying? And how is your coach? I still study all the time. My current coach is the Pokar Backing Company. for the most part. I study a lot from everything they do. Who's the worst established pro? The guy who's rolled from getting lucky. I don't know. I'm sure you can figure that out. It is funny if you look at like the top 100 poker players in GPI. They're very often 5 or 10 players who everyone knows is just not good. And I mean, to be fair, some of them are obviously recreational, but even some of the quote-unquote decent players are not very good. I played with a guy the other day in a very high-stakes tournament. He's like a young kid. And he's just terrible. But, you know, hey, somehow he's winning. Best advice for a pro moving to Vegas. Keep your expenses low. I know you can rent a place for like $1,000 a month. That's perfectly fine. Very close to the casinos. Find a game you can beat on the regular basis. That could vary depending on your skill level and what you're trying to accomplish. And then grind that a lot. What image should you have at a cash game? You don't necessarily get to pick your image. I just show up and do whatever I need to. I'm not trying to cultivate an image too hard. I just try to play well. Let's see. About to play a big tournament. Players are loose with wide ranges. How should you go about aces, kings, queens, knowing that people play any suited? Raise large. Raise large, get called by all sorts of stuff, and print money. Gang, we're going to change that about poker coaching in the very near future. So be patient. Who is better, Torelli or Doug Polk? I don't know. Better humans? I don't know. It's very funny whenever people are trying to judge people and gauge people's skill level. I mean, watch their content, see which one makes the most sense, and go from there. To be fair, I've learned a lot from both of those players, so I think they're both great. All right. Oh, we do have a webinar today for poker coaching. Thanks for reminding me. 2 p.m. We're going to be discussing... You know what? Let me pull it up right here. Let's see. I'm not used to having my computer right in front of me. I will tell you what the webinar is on. Everyone folds to you in middle position with a 100 big blind effective stack early in a $500 tournament. Most of the players you have to act are generally weak and passive. What is your strategy? Let's see if I can give you all a spoiler here. Does this work? Maybe... this is not going to work. Anyway, that's the question for today. Flop comes Queen 8-6. Oh wait, so we raised 2.5 big blinds. Only the button, a weak passive player calls. Flop comes Queen 8-6. What is our strategy? Suppose we bet 2.5 big blinds. The opponent calls, turns it 2. What's our strategy? Suppose we bet 6 big blinds. The opponent raises to 22 big blinds. What is our strategy? And it'll look, well... You all can't see this on Instagram, sorry. It's going to look a little something like this by the river. It's important that you structure your ranges intelligently so that you can play well. But anyway, that's at 2 o'clock today, 2 p.m. So make sure you are there. Johnny Ace is playing the main event of the World Series. Good luck. Kevin says he turned in his homework early this time. Excellent. Clint says you're the last person to turn it in. Yeah, go figure. That's fine. Doesn't really matter the order. I tend to get to all of them. Although I do go through them in order. Jim says, you're making a summary of my cash game book part 1 at the moment. Do I think this is a good way to study? Sure. I mean, taking bullet points making bullet points and general outlines is a very good way to go about studying. You believe you have a good strategy and game, but when you play live, you feel rushed and act too quickly. Understand, Nathan, you're not rushed. And also, study more away from the table so that you don't have to figure out what you're doing at the table, right? A lot of people think, okay, I need to figure this out on the fly, but you don't really. You need to figure it out away from the table so that you don't have to think about the generic situations when you find them at the poker table. So practice more is what it amounts to. Nathan, maybe you need to play smaller stakes and just get used to going quickly. Maybe you need to play online poker and get used to going quickly. But if your problem really is you feel rushed, okay, how do we stop feeling rushed? Well, we have to be able to play where we can think for 1 second instead of thinking for a minute and a half. So, play games where you get to think for 1 second and get good at going quickly. Why are you a better tournament player than cash player? Is it your mindset? It's probably your strategy. You're probably really good with short stacks, and you're probably really bad with deep stacks. That's very often just the simple answer. Same thing, while a lot of cash game players are really great in the early stages of tournaments, but really bad late in the tournament, because they are really good with deep stacks, but really bad with shallow stacks, right? Also, Nathan, you say you believe you have a good strategy. Understand your belief has absolutely nothing to do with poker. Or most things, really. What you believe does not matter. What is true is what matters. And to be fair, you may be good if you have 20 minutes to play, or 20 minutes stacked, but you may be awful when you have 10 seconds stacked. So you have to work at that. I mean, there are chess players who are really good at speed chess, but really bad at slow chess. And that's because, I mean, that was me. I'm pretty good at finding the right player close to the right play quickly, but given more time, I don't get much better, right? Whereas some people, they're awful at finding the best play quickly, but given time, they find the right play every time. And so it leads to different skill sets. That said, in poker, you do have to go a little bit fast. All right. How do you stop being lazy and start spending hours on whatever you're studying? Well, naturally, you have to make it an actual priority. You seem to run from whatever hard things you have to do. You need to find things you want to do. You have to understand in life, everything will be hard. Anything worth doing is difficult. And if you are lazy, you're just not going to have anything good in life. And that's okay. I mean, you don't have to have good things in life if you're not willing to put in the work. No one said you have to have good things in life. No one said you have to be a good, profitable poker player. And if you're cool with that, then there's no problem with that, right? I mean, this is why a lot of people don't actually care about winning. There's nothing wrong with it. They just don't care. So understand that that's not necessarily a bad thing unless you actually do care about having success. So if you care about having success, you have to develop discipline. Positive Poker and Peak Poker Performance. 2 books, maybe for you. To be fair, these are kind of big books. They're, how many pages? 300 pages or so. 250 pages each. So this is going to be a little bit of work. You may not want to do it. But how do you stop being lazy? You just have to get in there and do it. And if you don't do it, you're not going to succeed. Realize your future, your family's future, everyone you know's future depends on you not being lazy. I mean, I work very hard because I want to be successful and I want my family to have a good life, right? I mean, that's the baseline, like the underlying thing that I need to do, right? And so you just have to realize that that's it. Looks like a big coffee this morning. It does. We have a coaching session at 10 a.m. We have a webinar at 2. We have to be wide awake. What's the best way to play jacks? Go to pokercoaching.com. Any recommendation for World Series of Poker hotels/flights? I've been staying at Palm's Place the last few years. It's not so expensive. I mean, you can usually stay at the Rio cheaply enough, but the Rio's not very nice. You have to. I mean, this is a big question because it depends on what you want, right? I mean, if I had unlimited money, I'd probably stay at Mandarin Oriental, but I don't have unlimited money. So ask your question way more specifically, Robin, and I will give you a reasonable answer. How can you develop a confident mindset at the table? Positive Poker. And just understanding you know what you're doing, right? Very likely, Mark, you're not 100% confident in your skills yet, especially as you are continuously learning and trying to get better. And that's going to impact you. So you have to get more experience under your belt. You have to do more studying. You have to be more confident in the plays that you are making. And that's it. You say sometimes you have a hard time focusing in a bad run and negative variance. I mean, yeah, everyone's going to have that problem. I mean, whenever you do get punched in the face, you're going to have a hard time concentrating for a second. And that's okay. You're never just going to be like, lose a hand and forget about it, unless you're a robot like me. But you will get better with experience. And also just understand that losing is not bad. Most people associate losing with negative thoughts, with bad feelings. But losing is not necessarily bad. Playing poorly is bad. Don't do that. But you're going to lose in poker. So if you know you're going to lose, why would you care when you lose? Time management is critical to good poker. Yeah, you have to take time to study. That's absolutely true. Married people have a tougher time, you think? Well, anyone with responsibilities has a tougher time getting good at anything. Just because you have more demands in life, right? So you have to learn to delegate the things you can delegate and some things you just can't. If you have, 4 kids and a wife or a husband and you're trying to go to school part-time and you have a business, you're probably not going to be very good at poker. It's just how it is. You can get pretty good pretty fast by studying the right things, hiring the right coaches, etc. But no, you're not going to be a world-class poker player. You can maybe compete at a reasonably high level, but you're not going to become like the best in the world. It just is what it is because you're not devoting time to it like the best in the world. You have to understand you're competing against people who have devoted their whole life to poker, who are spending all of their time studying and playing. It's just hard to get there, right? All right. Louis Philippe says, when you first started following me, you was on your own, had a one-man business. Now you have a flourishing business, and we are a few. Great. You also built a poker community around you that greatly helped you improve. Thanks a lot for sharing your day-to-day mindset with you. Well, Louis Philippe, I'm glad to hear that's happening. Since I started a little coffee, my business has been getting bigger as well. I was a two-person business for a long time, me and my guy Dan, who does all the marketing. And we've expanded. Now we have Al and Brian and Justin and Brian and lots of other people. And that's fantastic. It's good to build, right? We're all builders at the end of the day, I think. We try to build our poker skills. We try to build our bankrolls. We try to build our businesses. We try to build our lives. And it's good to be able to share each other's experiences, learn from each other, and improve. So anyway, Louis Philippe, I'm glad to hear that's going well for you. Is age the number one predictor of style when you first get to the table? No. What would I say is the number one predictor of style? Lack of caring for money. I think that's the important one. If you can pinpoint that, very often you will have some indicator of style. And not necessarily... Well, you know what? I think that actually is it. The amount of respect for money. But it's not just I respect it a lot or I respect it not a lot. Because in the high roller tournaments, very often the weak players, the bad players, are loose, aggressive, and sporadically maniacal. It's very different than the bad players in small stakes games who are like usually just weak, tight, and not putting chips in the pot unless they're bluffing. But I would venture to say, it may seem like a lot of the pros don't care about money, but they do, right? They're disciplined with their bankroll for the most part. And when they're playing, they're making the right, whatever they think the right play is. So you may think that the very high stakes recreational players may care about money about the same level that pros do, but I don't think that's true, right? The recreational players very often really don't care about money because they're rich, whereas the pros do care about it. So it's I think that if you can figure out how someone values money and how they treat it, you'll have a very clear indicator of their general playing style. But yes, age is obviously something that's very important. Do you see anyone else that pop up on that screen? Oh, Jay, I have no clue what you're talking about. Let's see. Why risk receiving eternal pain instead of eternal... Okay, so we're talking about Jesus now. Okay. Do you ever straddle when players on the blinds are splashy or nits because you can exploit them, or would you just play normal? It's hard to exploit people from out of position straddling. In position straddling is perfectly fine. I think that's good and often the right play, especially if you're playing relatively deep stacked. Someone tried to call me on my phone. Sorry about that. So out of position straddles are almost never good. The only time you should be out of position straddling is when everyone's out of position straddling and you're playing really deep to where you really want to cut the stacks in half. Understand, when you're straddling, all you're doing is you're making the effective stack size half of what it was before. So you're saying, I want there to be less skill in this game, typically, unless the stacks are like 500 big blinds deep. And then also you're saying, I'm happy to put money in from out of position. And usually you don't want the game to play shallow, and you don't want to be out of position with money in the pot dead. So straddling out of position makes no sense. Just finished a book. Which of mine would I recommend? This one here. This is it. This is what everyone needs to get for Christmas and Hanukkah, and I guess Hanukkah's past, and Kwanzaa and all of your other holidays. New Year's. Most people have a New Year's. Mastering Small Stakes, No Limit Hold'em. This book will teach you to be a good, strong, fundamentally sound poker player who knows how to adjust to the things that your opponents are going to do incorrectly. You can find it at jlpoker.com/mastery. And then sign up for pokercoaching.com. When do you leave the table for the bathroom? I just posted a blog I posted about this on Instagram. On Twitter. Go find it. It's also on my blog. It's a picture of someone peeing. So go find that. It's like, I posted it over the last day or two. Lots of people liked it and retweeted it. I talk about that in my cash game book. In a cash game, do you trust the dealers to watch over your chips? In cash games, you should often take your big denomination chips. Local games allow the button to straddle. That means the small blind goes first. It's bad for the game. It is bad for the game. But is it good for the player who does it? Well, if it's bad for the game, it's good for the player who does it. That's what happens. What do I think about coaching for profit deals? It's tough to enforce. You have to really trust the person coming to you getting free coaching. Big blind ante or button ante? I don't think it matters. Probably big blind's better. So it's amazing for bad players that are short stacked that button straddles. No, not necessarily. PJB, you say you always count your chips before you leave. Do better, take a photo. You're wearing the same shirt in the book cover. No. This shirt here says ship it on it. This shirt and is red. This shirt here says nothing on it and is maroon. Why do other players care so much about what other players think? A lot of people play poker and do most things in life to try to impress people. You have to understand, most people work a job they don't like, to buy a house that's too big, to buy a car they don't need, to buy clothes they don't even wear, to impress someone who they don't even like. Right? Why are you doing all these things? It's because you have an insane amount of insecurities. You're not comfortable in your own skin. You may think that you are, but you're not. If you're trying to impress people, you're saying that I value these people's thoughts over my future. Right? And that's dumb. And the problem is most humans do this. Everyone does this. I'm sure I do this to some level. And realize that you don't need a house that's too big. You don't need a fancy car. You don't need fancy clothes. You don't need any of these things, right? You need to worry about taking care of yourself and taking care about the people and things and whatever else that you actually care about. And that's it. Don't go out and buy a mansion. You don't need a mansion, right? Unless you have, 100 kids. So anyway, that's my thought on that. Why do people care about this? Because we're silly monkeys, that's why. Figure it out and get over it. Pat G says, working out, eating better, studying poker, great. Glad to hear you're doing that. Will I be at the World Series of Poker? Almost certainly, unless this baby really takes over my life. Mark says, you play the game because you enjoy it and because you want a challenge. You want to play well and get better. Is this roughly the same as trying to make money? Go read my blog post, Mark, the 3 types of players who play games, and figure out which type you are. And you can be a blend of types. But understand, very often the players who win the most money are very purely the 3rd type, the type who is trying to win. So figure that out. If you are impressive, it will impress the people you need to have around you. If they're idiots. I have surrounded myself with, 8 or 10 mentors who are, in my mind, wildly successful at life. They all have nice things, but they don't live in mansions. Some of them do. But, it's like they're not like going off and spending their money in an insanely poor manner. And, like, if they are buying a mansion, it's because they already have $1 billion. And, if you spend $20 million on a mansion, whatever. But they're all smart, right? They're not flashy. They're not driving fast cars and wearing gaudy jewelry, right? Maybe that's not what impresses me, right? They're just nice, regular humans. They're kind to people. They help people. They are willing to better humanity. And, to be fair, maybe that is what impresses me, but it's certainly not what impresses most people. So, understand, if you have a fast car, I probably think you're a fish, or I think that you have lots and lots of disposable income, or that's maybe your hobby. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with having a hobby, right? You certainly should have a hobby. And if you like driving fast cars, then sure, that's your hobby. But if you just have one because you think the guy next door thinks that it's cool, or because there was some kid in 4th grade whose dad had a fast car and he was cooler than you because his dad had a fast car, and now you have a fast car, so now you're the cool kid. That's just absurd, right? I think that's actually what goes through most people's minds. Also, you have to realize if you're buying a fast car at the detriment of your family or the detriment of your own self, then that's probably a mistake. All right. Kevin says he has a Ford Focus he bought used. LOL. I mean, listen, so this is a good example, right? There are many people who make 50K a year who buy a 80K car. And that's just ridiculous, right? And they don't even drive it very often. I mean, there are people who do that same thing with clothes, same thing with houses, right? People spend their money on something. And you have to just make sure whatever you're spending on actually gives you good utility and good value. And if you have, a wife and a kid, you don't need a six bedroom house. You just don't, right? And understanding that's very important. You also don't need a car that goes 250 miles an hour. So understand that. Has Mastery been translated to French? It is not, as far as I know. It's hard to translate poker books because very often the market's just not that big. Some of my books have been translated into various languages, but no, I don't think it's in French. So, Kevin, I think you're missing the point here. You said you think you paid $8,500 for it. You're missing what I'm saying. Say you make $5K a year and you paid $8,500 for a car. That's probably also not responsible, right? I'm not saying the dollar amount. I'm saying the dollar amount relative to the money you make. I mean, for example, if you have a friend who's a billionaire and he has a $20 million house, understand that is, 0.2% of his net worth? Most people, they're like inverted on their house, right? They have a 300K house and they make 100K a year. And they have like 200K to their name, so they're in debt, right? So is it irresponsible for someone to buy a $20 million house? Well, if you were just blanket say that statement, obviously the answer is yes. But not if you have $1 billion, right? You could buy 20 million dollar houses. And it's still not even the same as most regular people. So you have to understand that. Johnny says he doesn't have a car. And I agree, I don't have a car, and I don't even want a car. I have a fancy watch I bought a long time ago. I think it cost like $15K. This was back when I was young and dumb. And I never wear it now. I almost feel odd wearing it because it's just so not me. And you always want to ask, is the thing I'm buying, does it have good utility? Does it provide value? And if the answer is no, you just probably don't need it. So Pat says an interesting thing. You had a 1995 Subaru. You drove it until it died. So problem with this, though. So now, let's go in the opposite end of the spectrum. You don't want to have a crappy car. Because if you have a crappy car, then you have to take it to the shop. Right? If your car is useless sometimes, that is a disaster. Because then you're wasting your time. This is why I don't think I'm ever going to have a car again. I'm pretty sure no matter where I'm going to live, I'm just going to take Uber everywhere. Or a program like Uber. Because there's no maintenance, right? How much is it worth to have no maintenance? That's a lot, right? How much is it worth to not have to go buy a car, to not have to deal with insurance payments, to not have to do all these things? If you can't afford that, I think it's very much worth it because then you're trading your dollars for additional time. Think about this, everyone. How much time, if you have a car, do you spend going to the gas station, paying your insurance each month, making sure all that stuff is up to date, going to the DMV, all of that? How much time do you spend on that each month? 2 or 3 hours? How much more would it cost you to take an Uber everywhere? I mean, I understand some people drive a ton, some people don't. But if you don't drive a ton, it may cost you like an extra $100 a month to not have to deal with any of that. So if you spend $100 to make 3 extra hours a month, is your time worth more than $33 an hour? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not, but often it is. How many big blinds do you think is safe to buy in for a cash game? Safe is a horrible idea here. I typically buy in for whatever the maximum is or to cover the bad players. I discuss this in my book, Jonathan Little on Live No Limit Hold'em Cash Games. D. Nelson says, you find freedom in driving. Yeah, sure, so you find it as a hobby. I find it as an annoyance, right? The idea of having to drive is nothing but a pain in my brain, and I have no desire to do it. So, if it's a hobby, remember, we discussed hobbies. Hobbies are fine, but understand it's a hobby. How much is it worth to not have to wait for Uber to pick you up? Well, so far I've had no issues. Maybe I've just been lucky. You order it, and then you go downstairs when it arrives. It's about as convenient as it can be. Pat says, you did your own maintenance. That takes a lot of time, right? Listen, you always have to ask, what am I trying to free up? What do I not have more of? And whenever you're young, or just getting started, or after you've done something wrong, very often you don't have money. So you're trading your money. Oops. I have to go to a coaching session soon. Whenever you're young or just getting started, you trade your time for money. Okay? But after a while, you realize, I don't really need more money. For example, why does anyone need $10 million in the bank? They just don't, right? So once you have $10 million, or less, whatever it is, you now start trading your money for time, because you realize time is what is limited. For example, I don't go to the grocery store anymore. I have people deliver it, and I have to pay them $20 or whatever it is. And I'm more than happy to do that, because if it takes an hour to go to the grocery store, I'm trading $20 for another hour of my life, right? Same thing with driving a car. If I don't have to drive the car, I can sit in the back and do work. I can take a nap, whatever it is. And that, whatever I'm paying on top of what I would normally pay for a car, I get that time. And you're going to find that as you progress in life in general, time is what you start to value more so than things like money. And often the people who value money are the people who get stuck in ruts of always trying to impress other people. Stream your coaching session? No, that would not be good to the student. Although maybe I should. But anyway, whenever you're young, your time is worthless, right? You have lots of time to give, and to be fair, your time's not really worthless, but you have lots of time to give, and that's why you can often do things like go into an apprenticeship or go to school, right? Where you make no money, where you spend money to potentially have to make more out of your time later. But anyway, at this point in my life, I highly value time, and that results in me not doing things, or I'm shifting my life towards things that free up time. Good example of this is ordering dinner at night. I almost never cook food. Once every 3 months. And we order in every single day. And it costs $50 or $60, whatever it is. And that's like 2 or 3 times more expensive than it would cost if we made it ourselves. But I don't have to think about it. I don't have to spend time cooking it. And it frees up an hour of my life. So is it worth $60 to free up an hour of my life? Absolutely. Because I know roughly what my hourly rate is, right? And it's way more than $60 an hour. But again, some people like cooking. It's their hobby. It's not my hobby. I don't like it. So I don't do it. All right, let's see. You moved to China a year ago and not having to worry about a car. It's nice. Yeah, I mean, I live in New York City. It's nice. You do not need a car here either. If you ever put money on the poker table, Louis Philippe says you must try pokercoaching.com. Well, thank you, Louis Philippe. I appreciate it. All right. But anyway, so going back to if you have, the real question is, do you have to drive on a regular basis, right? If you have to drive a long way on a regular basis and you don't make a ton of money, then obviously, yes, you probably need a car. But again, realize you're trading your time for money. So that's it. Do I like dogs? Sure. What's my go-to live tell? I don't know. There are a lot of them. Read this book here. Do we talk about tells and mastering small stakes no limit hold'em? We must. We absolutely must. Well, there's 30 pages of additional topics. I'm sure it's in here. I discuss my tells in here. What will you do with a child and no car? What do you mean? They have taxis and they have Ubers. All right, I have to go do a coaching session now. Hope you all have a great day. I will be back Monday unless I have a baby. I'm thinking I'm pretty live to have that baby this weekend. It would be about 8 or 10 days early, but the first one came 8 or 10 days early. So we're at least live. B. Wild says, you trust Uber drivers to drive your kid? This is an interesting thing that I listened to an angel investor, Jason Calacanis. He has this book here called Angel. If you care about angel investing, check it out. Anyway, he said he could not comprehend the idea that people would trust a strange man to pick up his teenage daughters and drive them somewhere. That would be insane. Yet, turns out it's what people do. They have these doorbell services now that basically, if you're a delivery person, you can open the person's door, go into their house, and put their stuff inside their house and shut the door. People are waiting to let strangers into their house instead of leaving their stuff outside. So it's kind of neat. What time's the webinar? 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern time. Seth says you play 25 cents, 50 cents. How do you beat players who raise huge? Just play tight. Print money. What's the title of my next book? I have 3 books in the works, so we're not going to discuss that today. They're all in the works. They'll get done when they're done. Modern Poker Theories is the next one up. It's not actually my book, but I have to edit it, so it's taking a lot of time. Part owner of D&B Poker. They are the biggest poker publishing company in the world at the moment. They have all the highest selling books. They do good work, and I'm honored to be a part of them, and part of my job is to edit the content. So it's a lot of work. All right, have a good day. I will see you when I see you, probably Monday at 9 a.m., but maybe at a different time. And if you want more from me, go to pokercoaching.com, sign up, do the homework. If you have a free day today, go sign up to Poker Coaching. Do the homework, be with me in the webinar at 2 o'clock, and I promise you will get significantly better at poker, because today's question is very applicable to everyone, where you raise, someone on the button calls, you're out of position. How do you play this spot? And we're going to discuss how to play every hand in your range in that scenario, and that's going to make you better just understanding that one spot. So go there, sign up, make it happen. Have a good day. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later.